Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechtas Yevamot daf Pei Ches. We're going to begin on Pei Ches Mad Aleph, the fifth line from the top. So our parak began where a man went to Medina Sayyam and she was told that he died. And because of that, she got remarried. And then lo and behold, he comes back, her original husband. So on this, we say that she has to leave both marriages. Now exactly what situation that is, the Gemara is going to discuss. But the Mishnah later on discusses that there's a difference if she got married shlul b'reshus. If it was shlul b'reshus, means without the permission of Beis Din, which means she didn't need the permission of the Beis Din because there was two witnesses that said that your husband died. In that situation, we said muteres lachzor lo, that she's actually allowed to go back to her original husband, because it was an oinus. It was completely beyond her control. I mean, she got remarried because she heard two witnesses. However, in the situation with shalom b'reshus, it was b'reshus Beis Din. If, let's say, again, it was because there was only one witness, so in that case, the Beis Din was lenient, but Teitzei, she still has to leave that relationship. And also discusses the difference when you're patur from a karma. So we wanted to learn from here, because it talks about the situation of Shul B'Reshus Beis Din El Be'edim, so the Reisha, where it says B'Reshus Beis Din, is referring to there's only one witness. So we tried to learn that maybe one witness is believed when it comes to Din D'Oraisa. And we're going back and forth and discussing this, and we're saying maybe it wasn't because of the case of Chalev, of non-kosher fat, is because it was one witness, but rather because of Shtika Kodah. Because when he said, oh, I know you ate this fat, you didn't say anything. That's maybe the reason why you're chayiv. It's not because of the Eid Echad, but because of the Shtika Kodah. So El Svarhi, Midi Dehavi Chaticha, when you have a piece of fat, Safik Shalchel Safik Shal Shuman. We don't know the status of this fat. The Asa Eid Echad, one witness comes to clarify. The Omer Barili Deshumanhu. He says, I'm 100% sure that this is a mutter fat. Demehiman. In that situation, we believe him. So maybe that's the whole reason. That just like when one witness comes and says that we don't know the status of this fat, and he says, no, it's fine, go ahead and eat it. So too when it comes to one witness that says, no, I know for a fact your husband's dead, go ahead and you get remarried. So therefore he's believed in that case. Whereas you can't compare those two situations. Midami, Hasam, Louis Chazik Surah. When it comes to the case of the fat in front of us, we have no idea if there's an Isser or not. It's possible, but we don't know for sure. Here we know that she was originally married. So the whole question is she still married? So the starting point is that she's an Eshes Ish and cannot get remarried to anyone. So therefore, you cannot necessarily believe one witness in that situation based on that. After all, we hold that you need two witnesses. So perhaps we're talking about a situation where everyone knows that this piece of meat is definitely non-kosher. And all of a sudden, even though it says chazik isur, this one person comes and says, no, it's not non-kosher, it's kosher fat, havi, dulul mehiman. In that situation, he's no longer believed. Because once it's chazik isura, you need two witnesses. So too maybe over here it's chazik isura because she's an Eshes Ish. One witness is not good. Whereas it's midami, how can you compare it there either? Hasam, by the case of Chalev, that feel also be meya lo mehimni. The fact is, it's established that this piece of fat which is in front of us is 100% Chalev. We know it's non-kosher. So if it's pork, right? For example, it doesn't matter. Thousands of people can say, "Oh no, it's not pork. It's not pork." You see it, and you know as a fact it's bar kachama. That's what it is. So in that situation, of course, we're not going to believe one. We wouldn't believe anyone. So however, you have two people that say your husband's dead. We believe them. So so maybe one is also believed. So immediately havi a tevel hektish v'konamlis. So we say that perhaps we could compare this to the case of the dinim of tevel hektish v'konamos. Says Rashi, diafagav this chazik isura samchinan alei. Even though there may be this element that this is tevel, nonetheless we have some level of reliance. Says the Gemara, because high tevel heichadam. What does that mean? if it's his own tevel, mishum debiyad l'saknai. So maybe the reason why we believe him is because he could have fixed it himself. He has it within his hands to be able to masakin it. Elwa de'acher. So we're talking about maybe it's tevel that belongs to someone else. If it's tevel that belongs to someone else, so you don't have the ability to have changed it. So Mike Savar. So what do we hold? Ika Savar tar mishuloi al shel chavero in sarach das balam. Let's say a person is tiring from his own al shel chavero on his friends, that you don't need to ask permission. In other words, again, maybe you yourself, even if it's not your tevel, you could still separate it from your own grains. So mishum debidol saknai. So maybe the reason why you believe over there again is even though it's not your tevel, it's not yours, but you can still be masakin it. The iksaver sarach das balim, and if you hold that you need consent of the owner, the yomer anoya danabei de masakin, and he says, I know that he fixed it, so he goofa manolan. So how do you know this, that the tevel that you are believed by an eid echad? So how do we know that would be the case? Fine. So hektish nami, you can say the same thing when it comes to hektish. I kedushas damim, if we're talking about kedushas damim, that it's donations to the Beis HaMikdash, mishum debiyado lifdaiso. There's a din you can be paid it onto something else. I kedushas a guf. If let's say it's kachim mizbeach, a carbon, so idi day, if it's yours, mishum debiyado it's shulei. You could always be mater, and you can say you can somehow remove it. El da'acher. Let's say again it belongs to someone else. The Yomer Yadana Bey the itchil Mareale. I know that he was like mater, so he goof manol. And how do you know that he could do that? So kanamois, and again he goof manol. And how do we know that in this case you're believed by an eid echad? So kanamois nami iksav yesh me'ilo b'kanamois. Is there a din of Me'ilo when it comes to kanamas, says Rashi, the kachi beta kabayas hain mishaimer kainim davar zelai. When you make a kainim on this is upon me, kedushas damim nachatzel hu mishum debiyado lifdaisa. So it has the same din as kedushas damim, and you can again be redeeming it. The iksaver ein me'ilo b'kanamos the isser ba'almahu. The rachavluhu akasve, riding on his shoulders. So idi day, if it's his object, mishum debiyado litshulele, he's able to redeem. He's able to be mater. El de acher, someone else. The amar no yadana de ishkum ole. So he goof manolan. So again, how do you know that the one witnesses believe? So Rav Zera mitay chaymer shechamarta lehab seifa. So this is the maskana. Because of the strictness that we have at the end, says Rashi, she'im bo bala, that if let's say she has tashmish with her husband, noisin lehel kol davarim ha'elu shemishnasenu, so he kalta lehel b'tchila. We're lenient at the beginning, says Rashi, lahatiro l'hidase. We allow her to get married. Mimnei shehi chaysheshes shematis kalkel. Maybe there's a problem of a mitzvah ad bodka shapir, because this woman is going to be very strict. She's not going to simply get married until she's 100% definitive that her husband has died. So maybe we shouldn't be strict or lenient. So because of the din of a guna, where the rabbanan are makel. So in other words, it's possible that's true, that normally one witness is not necessarily believing the raisa. However, when it comes to a woman, because she's daik mitzvah, she's not just going to get remarried. She's not going to necessarily be samech on one witness, but we're going to be lenient with one witness and the fact that she's going to look into it and investigate, and that's the reason why we are lenient. Question 7. Ma'ishna eidus isha shahov bala de ein eid echa neman midaraisa. Why is it come when it comes to eidus isha that her husband went and one witness is not believed? Me'edus al safik chaticha di isura o hafrashas chamuros umaisus dinemon. So why over there is there a belief? So safik chaticha, when there's a piece of meat in front of us that may be shuman and maybe chaylev, lois chazik isura. We don't know necessarily there's an isur. Edus isha is chazik isura. When it comes to this woman, she's an eishas ish. Hafrashas chumas umaisus biyodol saknai. As you said, it's possible if it's tevel, if it's yours, you can fix it up. Edus isha in biyodol saknai. You don't have anything, you can't do anything about it, right? Your husband's not around. You can't give yourself a get, and your husband may not be dead. So therefore, because of that, we cannot compare the two situations. Okay. question TB12. So the question is, Menayin she'ed echad neman b'isurin, how do you know one aid is believed, heicha de lois chazek isura, in a situation where it's lois chazek isura. So where it says, Svarhu, the imo kain, ein locha adam oichel mishel chavera, ve'ein locha adam samach al b'nei beisai. So we see, and this is actually a Rashi which I did not see, it was really a very important Rashi, which is TB 12. So why do we say that one witness is believed by Yisurin? Something is Osir, something is Mutter, because otherwise a person would never be able to eat from his friend's food. And because your friend says, yeah, it's kosher. How do you know? And no person would be able to be samech al b'nei beso, his own family, right? You ask your wife, can I eat this food? Yeah, don't worry, you can eat it. What do you mean? She's only one person. Or wife, can you listen to your husband? If your husband says, yeah, it's kosher. Yes, you're allowed to because eidechanam b'surin. So it's a svara, because otherwise you can imagine the difficulties of life if it wasn't for that. Teitzim mizu. So he said, what happens? She ended up getting married, and then all of a sudden her husband walks into the door. So the din is that she has to leave both marriages. Omarav. So lo shanu, the only time we say this din is el shenises be'ed echad, is where she got married with only one witness. So she was allowed to get married with one witness. We're makel on that because of a guna. All of a sudden her husband comes back in. So in that situation we say, okay, now because of this, they have to get divorced. But let's say the reason why she got married to the second man is because there are two witnesses. Lo teitze. In that situation, she does not need to leave. Now, according to Sfar over here, is the second man. She does not have to leave the second husband. On this, machol marava. The people in Eretz Yisrael literally scoffed at this. Also, Gavra v'koi. You have the first husband that just showed up and he's alive. Via amrit lo teitze. How is it shaykh that you can say that she doesn't have to leave the second marriage? Who cares that there was two witnesses? The Metzias is that you have this new husband standing right in front of us. So obviously it's a problem, and she should not be able to stay in the second marriage. Where says Lotzricha delo yadinan le. Unbelievable. What does that mean? That we don't recognize who this first man is. He claims he's the first husband, but no one knows if it's true, right? So that's why she can stay by her second marriage. Since there's two witnesses that said he was dead, and now she's married to the second guy, and some stranger shows up. He's like, who are you? He's like, I was your husband. Really? You don't look like my original husband. I'm telling you, it's my original husband. So we say, no, she doesn't have to leave the second marriage. Now, idul yadinan le be'ed echad my teitze. So if you're making a chil between one or two witnesses, if no one knows who this guy is, right? So he's some stranger. So who cares if it's one or two witnesses? She should never have to leave the second marriage. This guy is not her husband, the original husband. Not her original husband. Two people came. Anan havinan bahadei. I was with him. Mechinafik when he left Yad Hashda. I was with this guy the whole time. The aton and only you who the lo yaditu only you don't know, but we know this is your husband. How is it possible? Yosef was the viceroy, so for some reason Yosef recognized his brothers, but his brothers didn't recognize him. Because Yosef was young when he was sold, and now he has this long beard, he has all these features, and he looks like a viceroy, looks like a completely different person, so the brothers didn't recognize him. But it doesn't mean it wasn't Yosef. It really was. I mean, a lot of people could look at him and say, that's not Yosef. That definitely doesn't look like my brother Yosef. But it really was Yosef. So it's the same thing. You have two witnesses that said, I'm telling you, I don't care that you got remarried with two witnesses who said the guy died. I was with him, and this is the same guy, and therefore, that's a problem. So verse 1 second. So self-tree trained in who doesn't make any sense. If you have, in fact, two witnesses that originally said she can get married, we continue to pay chesed beis, and then you have two witnesses, so she got remarried, and then two witnesses said, no, this is your husband, your first husband. So why would you allow her to stay in the second marriage? It's 2 against 2. They should cancel each other out. Every single time she's with her second husband, it's an asham taloi. There's always the chance that it's not true. Interesting. That she actually married one of the two witnesses. So the husband doesn't have to bring an asham tali because he says, I know for a fact that the man's dead. I know for a fact that your original husband's dead. So therefore, because of that, there's no need for me to have to bring an Asham Tali, because I know for a fact that I'm allowed to be married to you, the second husband, and he was one of the witnesses who saw that her original husband died. So fine. So he goofed Asham Tali Kaima. So again, he knows in his gut that 100% this man was dead, so he doesn't have to bring an Asham Tali. But the woman should, because she doesn't know. She's relying on these two witnesses. It's where she says, I am Bari. I know for a fact it must be true. My husband is definitely dead. And that's how she is accepting it. So that she's a Bari, so you don't bring an Asham Tali. So Yihalchi Maila Memra. So then if that's the case, what's the Chiddush? Rabbi Menachem, Rabbi Yosef, Lo Yikamer Ella Kishibo Edim. The only time he said his din is if witnesses come, and then afterwards she got married. Which, in other words, witnesses came, the second group, and so in that case, maybe she's not allowed to get married, and she did it anyway. But if, let's say, she got married and then the witnesses came, in that case, we're not going to cause her any problems. She can stay. Lo Omer, it doesn't say that. It's Tanya. Shnaim Omer makes. Shnaim Omer lo makes. Again, you have this tray. Two say your husband's dead. Two say no. Shnaim Omer nisgarsha. Shnaim Omer lo nisgarsha. Two say you're divorced. Two say you're not divorced. There's a question if she's free to get remarried. So harizulo tenase. Because it's tray, we're not going to take any chances. We're not allowed to get her remarried because maybe she, in fact, her husband's still alive. Maybe she did not get divorced. However, we say this kula, that if she gets married, even though it's tray, we allow her to get to remain married. We're not going to have her leave that marriage. However, Rabbi Yossi Omer, no, Teitze, says no, that wasn't acceptable. She was not supposed to get married. It was tray. Therefore, because that she was not supposed to get married, the fact that she did get married, we're going to say she has to leave that marriage. So Rabbi Yosef, Amos, Ani Omer, Teitze, when do I say that she has to leave the second marriage? Because it's 2 against 2, is Bizman, Shabo Edom Achach Nises. If you had the second group of witnesses that said, well, 1 second, your husband's not dead, well, 1 second, you're not divorced, then she shouldn't have gotten remarried, therefore she can leave. However, even he would hold that if you had 2 witnesses, and she got married because of that, and then afterwards 2 witnesses later on came, even he would say that she doesn't have to leave the marriage. So there's no chiddush over here. Even he wouldn't say this. So Kikam Rav Nami Bizman Shabo Edim V'Achach Nises, you're right. We're talking about a situation where the 2 witnesses came, and then afterwards she got married. So the chiddush is that even when 2 witnesses came with her first husband, still, possibly it's her first husband, still she can marry the guy, or she can remain married to the guy who is one of the 2 other Edim who says she was divorced. So again, in that situation, we're not going to require her to leave in that situation. So that's the chiddush. No, you're right. It has to be that situation. The chiddush is that even though the witnesses came, and this guy, even before she got married, and now she got married, the din is even there lo teitze. Well, Fukim Rabbi Menachem Rabbi Yossi, which is excluding Rabbi Menachem Rabbi Yossi. Some say the only time we're lenient is because, again, she first got married and then afterwards witnesses came. But rather, if, let's say, first these witnesses came and said, no, this is your husband, so she should not have gotten married. If she did, she would have to leave the second marriage. Come on. So ask the question, how do we know the din if she does not want, says Rashi, Koyin liskadish min tuma umin noshim pasulos. If lo ratza, if the Kohen does not want to be miskadish from tuma and from women who are psulos, depadu. How do we know that literally we would hit the Kohen, depanu, that we'd hit the Kohen? He kahu v'kadshu bal karchay, that we could will still force him to marry. Talmulama v'kidashtai bal karcho. Hechadam. What does that mean? What are you talking about? So nises le'echan miyadaha. If we're talking about she's not marrying one of the witnesses, v'leikamer barley, she doesn't say barley serichla meimer didafnoi. So l'chor it's a davar pashut. That that's unacceptable. Elolav denises le'echad miyadaha v'kamer barley v'katani dafnoi. Nonetheless, even though she says that I'm sure this is not my husband. I'm sure my husband's dead. And she marries one of the witnesses that verifies this. Katani Davnai Alma Mafkina Lamine, says Rashi. Kasha Rab, the Be'ed Echad Lo Matzil Ukme. You can't say we're talking about a case of one witness. De'im Kain Lomli Kra. Havade Ein Echad B'Makam Shnayim. Defanu Be'edim. Based in Musharim Litroach Acher Edim Lahachish Esari Shainim Hamatirim Oisai. So my answer is Isser Kahuna Shani. Over there we're talking about an Isser Kahuna. In Isser Kahuna, you're right. Maybe we're more strict when it comes to Isser Kahuna. It means with witnesses. What does that mean? So Rashi says here, based in Musharim Litroach Acher Edim. The based in is trouble to go after witnesses. Lahachish Esari Shainim, to contradict the original ones. Hamatirin also the ones that allowed her. Kedei Kaddish as a kohen. So in order for the kohen to get married, but once they get married, maybe also lotetze. So the question is, she may return to her original husband because she married based on the Edom of two Edom. Okay. So it's like an oinus. Okay, let's go weiter. Now we're talking about a situation where the Edom came and then after she got married. Rav Yosihi. Rav Ashi Omer Milo Tate Sidikama Rav. Now we're talking about that she can stay or not stay in the second marriage. And again, it's Treu Trey, as we said, and she didn't recognize him, and you have two witnesses that said this is your husband. Lo Tatesim Hatera Harishon. It's actually saying regarding the leaving of her first husband, that she doesn't have to leave her first husband. She can go back to her first husband. This is her man. This is her husband. He walked in the door. So she goes Bilchayra. And in this situation, if there was two witnesses that she was allowed to get married to the second guy, so we're not going to punish her, we're not going to knas her, so she can go back to her original husband. Ha'amro Rav Chada Zimna. We already have him saying this. That nan Nisa Shel Rishos. Let's say she got married without Rishos. It says she's allowed to go back to her first husband. The truth is, one was just deduced from the other. The only time is if there wasn't a contradiction. But if she denies this is her husband, then lo teitze, then she does not go out. But my skin and ilema. If let's say you have two witnesses that say this is your husband, so her contradiction doesn't seem to have any validity because you're going against two witnesses. El Bechad. You have one witness that says this is your husband, then she contradicts. Maybe the only reason why we say this is because she contradicts him. However, if let's say she is silent, so in that situation she does have to leave that marriage. Whenever we believe one witness, it's like they have the power of two. And her one has no power against two. So here we're talking about psuli edus. Whenever we believe one witness, we go after the majority of minds. We consider two women with one man like two men with to one man, says Rashi. We're talking about two. Kigoin kroivim says, imagine that they're relatives. O noshim, or women. Also beheaded they come, and the army zahu, the kamashmon shmul, the azlina basarob deis, hoyel ein kan edus kshera. Fine. V'hiboy sema kol hechad also ed echad. Kasher mikar, if one witness comes originally and claims that her husband's dead, nafil man noshim ke'ed echad damyan. Even 100 women are like one. So even if she's silent in that situation, lo teitze. So hakamai skin can go in diasa isha miyakara, that the woman came originally. V'tartzel Rav Nechemia. Hachi Amar Rav Nechemia. Oimer kol makom shamidu tayra ed echad halach acharob deos. V'yasa shnei nashim b'ish achas k'shtei nashim b'ish echad. Al shtei nashim b'ish echad kipalgo palgadam. And it's like 50-50. Okay, we're going to stop here. Let's see a couple of questions. Okay. T.A. Let's start off with question 7. Okay, question 7 we saw. Question 8. Omrav nises al pi shnei edim lo teitze. So he said that if a person gets married al pi 2 witnesses, so lo teitze, she doesn't have to leave. That means she doesn't have to leave the second marriage. He said kasha hatre betrainin who v'kal be'eshes b'ashim taloi. So he said that we're talking about a situation where she marries one of the Edom, and she says borili. So there's no need to bring a carbon in that situation. You have 2 witnesses, again, according to the first Lashon, that says that your first husband died, even though the witnesses come and said this other guy is really your first guy. This first guy over here is actually your husband, even though she doesn't recognize him. So we say lo teitze, she doesn't have to leave that marriage because she's married to one of the Edom and says no, that's not true. And she says barley, I'm sure also that's not true. Okay, TA 11. Shnaim ormim meis, ushnaim ormim lo meis. So marav lo teitze. So madu lo teitze, or madir lo teitze misheni. Why doesn't she have to leave? Ha havi safik eishes ish ushnaim ba'ashim toli. It sounds like an identical question. This is TA 11. So I'm sure he's going to write the exact same thing. Let's just see what it says. Kivan bo'omeres barli v'nises la'echad me'edaha. Okay. TB 12. Menayim she'ed echanam would be surin. So we saw the hechen not in basin l'akar dabar min atayra fil b'kum ba'aseh. We'll see that in tomorrow's daf. Ad kan.